What's going on, YouTube? I'm out here at Southview Cemetery in Atlanta once again to find and pay my respects to Mr. John Robert Lewis, a truly courageous gentleman that gave everything he had to the civil rights movement. And first, let me say welcome back. And if this is your first time, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, things like that. Now, let me start by saying this. I am very excited about this video because I wish I had the opportunity to at least meet this man. I love history, and this is one guy that I really admire, and I still do to this day. So to begin with, Mr. John Robert Lewis was born February 21st, 1940, around Troy, Alabama. He was third of 10 children born to Willie Mae and Eddie Lewis. There's a little bit of Hennessy. At an early age, he knew he wanted to be a preacher, and it said that he would actually go out and preach on the to the chickens on his family's farm. Now, when he was 6 years old, he only had seen 2 white people in his whole life, because Pike County, which is where Troy's at, it's mainly majority of black people living there. It's a great little town. My wife actually went to Troy University, or Troy State. But so he recalled going to Troy to get books from the library, but was told that the library was for only whites only. It wasn't until he took a trip to New York with his uncle that he seen just how segregated the South was. And when he was 15, that's the first time he heard Martin Luther King speak on the radio, and he would talk about Montgomery boycott. So he would write Mr. King about not being able to enroll in Troy State, which is now Troy University. And Mr. King, who referred to Lewis as the boy from Troy, talked to him about suing the university, but warned him of retaliation to him and his family. So Lewis decided to go to American Baptist Theological Seminary in Nashville, Tennessee. While in college, he became an activist in the civil rights movement and would organize sit-ins. He would be arrested several times for nonviolent protests to end the segregated South. He is noted as saying it is important to engage good trouble and necessary trouble in order to change. In 1961, he became one of the 13 original freedom fighters. He, along with other blacks and whites, would ride buses along the interstates in hopes of desegregating the bus line. They often were beaten and in some cases thrown in jail. In Birmingham, he was beaten by the KKK mob that was tipped off by the police. In Montgomery, he was beaten and left unconscious at the Greyhound bus station. Now, on March the 7th, 1965, what is now known as Bloody Sunday, Mr. Lewis and others were in Selma to lead a march to Montgomery for the rights for blacks to vote. When they arrived on the other side of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, they were met by police and state troopers. They were told to go back. When they took a knee to pray, the officers discharged tear gas and charged at them. They were beaten and trampled by horses. Mr. Lewis' skull was fractured, but he was able to escape. And this here is a picture of him. That's actually him being hit. Now, throughout his career, he held positions such as Director of Southern Regional Council, Community Project, Director of Voter Education Projects, and he accepted a position in President Jimmy Carter's administration as Associate Director of Action, which had multiple programs such as Peace Corps, Office of Economic Opportunity, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and many more. In 1981, he won a seat on the Atlanta City Council. He became a member of the House of Representatives from 1988 until 2018. Those who knew and worked alongside him said he was the most liberal congressman to have ever represented the district in the Deep South. After the election in 2008, where Barack Obama won the presidency, and Mr. Lewis switched his vote from Hillary Clinton to Barack Obama, he said, "If someone had told me this was happening now, back then, I would have said they were crazy, out of their mind, and that they didn't know what they were talking about." He would also say that he just wished others were around to see this day. And he is responsible for getting the National Museum of African and American History and Culture at the Smithsonian in Washington. Now, Mr. Lewis was married to Miss Lillian Miles in 1968, and they had one son. Miss Lewis passed away on December 31st, 2012. On December 29th, 2019, Mr. Lewis announced that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He said he fought for freedom, equality, and basic human rights his whole life, but nothing like the fight he was in right then when he was going through that. On July 17th, 2020, Mr. Lewis passed away at the age of 80 in Atlanta. His funeral services began in Troy, where he was denied acceptance into school. His caskets was then taken to Selma. Then he was taken by horse-drawn carriage over the bridge and traveled the same route he marched to Montgomery, where he lied in state at the Alabama State Capitol. On July 27th and 28th, he lied in state at the United States Capitol Rotunda, becoming the first African-American lawmaker to be honored in the Rotunda. He was taken to Atlanta, where he laid in state at the Georgia State Capitol. And here is his final resting place alongside his wife here. Lewis, they walked where others had not gone. It says, "For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried." And that's him there. John Robert Lewis, February 21st, 1940, July 17th, 2020. And this here is his wife. Lillian Miles, March 3rd, 1939, December 31st, 2012. This is chartered. This is Southview Cemetery Association. Bells ring for John Lewis in celebration of the life and legacy of Congressman John Lewis, July 17th through the 30th, 2023. Participate in a personal moment of reflection and celebrate the incredible life and legacy of the late Congressman John Lewis. Wherever you are at 11 a.m. on July 30th, ring a bell for 80 seconds to honor the Congressman 80 years of life and commemorate the day he was laid to rest in 2020. So I'm just going to take I know it's not 80 seconds, but they have a funeral going on. I don't want to be too loud. Rest in peace, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment. I'll see you on the next People of the Past.